Thank you for being with us, sir. As we talk about mental health, and a lot of folks right now are worried about their finances, you're going to explain to us what financial therapy is. What is this?
Financial therapy basically is the gap between the mental health profession and the financial planning profession. And it came about by a psychologist named Daniel Kahneman, who did some research, and he found out that 90% of all financial decisions are made emotionally in the limbic system, not in the thinking brain. And he actually won a Nobel Prize for this in 2002 in economics. So what I find is that financial professionals, they don't do emotions well, and mental health professionals or therapists don't do money well. And so we have this huge gap in between where we live with making emotional financial decisions.
A lot of folks are finding themselves unemployed. They are worrying about how they're going to pay their bills, what their future looks like. Can financial therapy be a tool for those folks?
Financial therapy is certainly good in a time of crisis, but it's also good in a time of stability and just somebody wanting to live a bigger life. But since this is such an impactful, emotional time, we have a number of things coming together at the same time, which we've never seen in our lifetime, certainly. Financial therapy can be very helpful.
Let's talk about that stress and avoiding financial stress, specifically during a pandemic, what we're going through right now.
Yeah, the first thing to do is don't avoid it. And that's exactly where most of us go, is avoiding the stress actually depletes emotional reserves. So what we want to do is acknowledge the stress. And what's behind stress? Well, what's behind stress are difficult emotions: fear, terror, anxiety. And so many of us cling to the thoughts as we're having stress. We're thinking, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my house, and all the thoughts. The key is to try and let go of the thoughts and find the feelings. Now, I know to some people that sounds rather elementary, but believe me, to a lot of us, and I was certainly one of those people and still can be, it's difficult just to get to the feeling and to name the fact, I'm terrified. And just doing that, they call, in the mental health profession, it's called affect labeling. Just naming the emotion, you'll find it will decrease the intensity, and it restores the ability to think. It brings the cerebral cortex back online. And then we can start focusing on the present. Am I okay now? And what can I do right now?
If someone has a money disorder, can what we are going through right now in a pandemic increase that and make it worse for them?
Yeah, on steroids. One of the money disorders is hoarding. How many of us have spent a few hours driving around town looking for toilet paper? So it absolutely can magnify any type of money disorder. Another one that is my drug of choice is workaholism. And this is difficult because certainly for somebody in my profession, our workload skyrockets during this period of time. So there's plenty of work to do. And we can find ourselves working 60, 70, 80 hours a week.
Our country has dealt with some financial challenges. I look back to 9/11. I look back at 2008. Did we learn anything from those times in American history and the struggles that we went through that maybe could help us cope?
I think there's less panic that's happening this time. A lot of those folks set aside reserves, maybe 1 or 2 years worth of income to live on. I don't know that many more people set aside emergency reserves, which is kind of sad. 40 or 70% of Americans live hand to mouth. So maybe that's a lesson that we hadn't learned. And I think one thing that we can bank on that would be similar to 2008 and 9/11 is that life as we know it is going to change. We don't know exactly how, but there's just facets of life that will change. Like in 9/11, we have the TSA now, and flying changed. I've read some reports that probably the airlines will be changed forever. It could be that some firms don't go back to their offices and discover that we can operate virtually just fine.
As the world looks at the potential of a financial crisis in addition to a pandemic, what is your best advice to help people cope with this reality?
You look at all of the pandemics that were before, the Hong Kong flu and some of those. None of them resulted in a major economic disruption, not one. So this is very, very unusual that we have this type of economic disruption. If this is a bear market that we're in, which would certainly appear to be, the average bear market runs 15, 17 months. We're only, 45 days into this? So, and you can probably look for the stock market to start going up long before things look better, which is what stock markets do. They are not rational. So I think we're just into it. I unfortunately think the worst days are still ahead for us, but hopefully we will have the resolve to, and we certainly will as a country, get through it.
All right, Rick Kahler, thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.